Welcome one, welcome all to the greatest show of them all. It is the NFC East Mixtape Volume 101, which doesn't mean we're going to tell you everything associated with the NFC East Mixtape. That's just the episode number. But in case you don't know what this is a show where we talk about the NFC East. You can access this on any of the NFC East blog podcast networks across SB Nation. That is Bleeding Green Nation for Philadelphia Eagles content, Blog of the Boys for Dallas Cowboys, Big Blue View for those New York Football Giants, or Hogs Haven for the Washington Commanders. You can also watch us live on the Bleeding Green Nation YouTube channel or the Blog on the Boys YouTube channel. He is Brandon Lee Gowton from BGN. I am RJ Ochoa from BTB. BLG, there are a lot of mixologists who have thoughts on where they should put their wallet in their pants.
As they should. And I think at least one listener did say that you can't put it in your back pocket or you're going to mess up your spine to a royal degree.
Somebody tagged me in an Instagram comment and said, RJ, I'm listening to the mixtape right now. You can't put your, like, just exactly what you said there. Like, you're going to mess up your spine. And I actually have been having, I don't say some back problems, but I've definitely been feeling a little bit more sore than usual as of late. So that was awfully coincidental. But yeah, Volume 101, we did it. On to the next 100.
Well, I will say, since everyone wants a vibe check, that's the most important thing. I'm feeling a little bit better. RJ.
Okay, so I asked you that last week. I said, like, how you doing? Whatever.
Mhm.
I actually was gonna make I was gonna come in this way. I was gonna be like, it's a few more weeks post-op. You know what I'm saying? Like, you have like a procedure, and the first time you see the doctor, it's like, how you doing? It's like, I'm barely moving. Like, I still got the stitches in. You know what I mean? Like, now we've already taken those stitches off. It sounds like, you know, you're eating solid foods again. You're exercising. You're walking. You're doing something. You're independent. That's what it seems like.
Yeah, far from being, 100%. I would not say I'm ready to move on by any means, but kind of forced to some degree, because in Philadelphia Eagles world and really NFL world as a whole, things are happening. It's it's really crazy considering the Super Bowl, like the season ended just not so long ago. It feels extremely, things are just sneaking up on me left and right. Like Survivor's starting tonight as of when you're listening to this podcast,
Right.
but tomorrow is when we're recording it. Like I'm not even ready for this.
It is a hectic time of year. Certainly, The Mandalorian is back today.
Right.
Actually, for people, we're recording this actually later than usual. It's 3:21 p.m. Central Standard Time on the last day of February. So this is March for those of you who are listening, because it dropped on Wednesday, March 1st. So I've seen a million different like things to binge in the month of March. Like, there's a lot of TV coming out in March. We've got Survivor, we've got Mandalorian, the new and what will be final season of Succession. I feel like I'm missing a lot of things. A lot of people are into The Last of Us. That's still moving along, obviously. So it's, we've got the Oscars coming up soon. Like, it's kind of a bump in time of year. I guess my point is there are a lot of ways to keep yourself preoccupied if you're trying to deal with the emotional thing that you're trying to deal with.
We also have a special guest on today's podcast, RJ. Throwing a curveball at you. There's a little surprise.
Is this
away from
is this
the mic.
Holden?
It's not.
I know
Holden.
you're 6'5", but I don't think Holden's that
It's
short.
Gizmo. Look at this little guy.
Look at
He's
Gizmo.
So cute. I'm
Okay.
dog sitting, and Gizmo is spending a couple days with me here. And this is why, listeners, you need to watch the YouTube version, because as RJ can attest to, I'm sure, Gizmo is very cute. He has his dinosaur.
It's a hoodie. It's a hood, yeah.
Because he's a small guy, it's cold out, so you got to keep him nice and warm. And here he is. What do you have to say to Gizmo, RJ?
Gizmo, first of all, you look very like people say, like, I want to boop a dog. I want to like ruffle the top of his head. You know what I mean? He looks like he has like a good head that I could ruffle and just give him some good like scruffs. Gizmo looks like a good boy. I like
you see his ears, his big ears. That's why he's the name. Obviously, he's like
right.
Gizmo, the gremlin.
I love the hood. I can't see the full body. I mean, you're not lifting him up that high. Okay, it was like we should just get a full Gizmo Pro. That's Gizmo. Whoa, we don't have to put a disclaimer or anything on this episode. I don't know for the visual audience, but Gizmo, fine. Welcome to the mixtape. You're not the first dog that BLG has announced that he is dog sitting on this show.
That's right, but he is the best, right, buddy?
Wow,
he can't hear. He doesn't have the headphones on.
Good boy, not barking. Right, so well trained. I thought you were going to say we had a special guest and then like bring on an actual guest. Jimmy Kempski that's our offseason. We need to come up with some offseason guest lists. We asked people to tell us theirs. Somebody asked if we should said that we should do like a New Heights crossover. I actually saw right before we started
this. But yeah, I would love to.
Well, you tweeted. Well, you said like be ambitious when you called for people.
I don't
to
know. I'm not blaming them. I'm just saying, like in terms of being able to deliver, I don't know how likely it is.
Look,
But sure,
listeners.
yeah.
BLG was like, "Come on, everybody, be ambitious with your recommendations."
No,
and
I
then like
agree.
you
Be
actually are, and
ambitious,
he's
but
like, "How could you dare say the new
no,
heights?" Blah blah
not
blah.
true. I'm just saying, like be ambitious, but also keep your expectations, realistic to some
Mm.
extent.
Well, so that was a suggestion. The New Heights crew. I saw you. I was going to say right before we started this, you tweeted that Howie Roseman said he's going to be a guest on that show. So we're doing some free promotion for New Heights. So maybe they repay us with like a crossover episode. You never know. Jimmy Kempski is a guest, not really like a bucket list thing. No offense to Jimmy, but
Wow.
I mean,
I'm gonna let him know you said that.
well, I mean, he's supposed to be on, like, you know what I mean? Like we've already kind of accomplished this, and you do a show with him every week. So, but Jimmy's awesome. Obviously, while we're on the subject of plugging things, he's selling Girl Scout cookies for his daughter. So everybody go to Jimmy's Twitter profile and buy some Girl Scout cookies. Look at that. I had to make up for it. T.O. is the dream guest. And actually, Brandon, we found out this week that T.O. is a Houston Astros fan that has to make your blood boil.
I could not care at all.
It was really strange.
For T.O.
So I was watching the Astros spring training game, obviously, just kind of going about my day. And first pitch comes up and it's T.O. It's like, what's going on here? But sure enough, he's an Astros fan. They had him on the broadcast and they were talking to him about it. And he said he kind of like came to know the organization through Reggie Jackson. Like what a humble brag. You know what I mean? Like, oh, yeah, Reggie Jackson got me into this whole thing. I also saw he threw out the first pitch for that game and he threw it to Chas McCormick, who made the pivotal catch in Game 5, obviously. And they were talking about like normally the person who throws the first pitch has the catcher like sign it. And Chaz was like, actually, T.O., I need you to sign this. So that's kind of funny.
Yep. That is very on brand for one. Terrell Owens.
What are your thoughts on the new pitch clock? That's what all sports fans are complaining about these days.
I'm not, like the biggest baseball guy, but from what I have seen, I like the concept. It does seem a little weird to me in terms of, stealing bases and whatnot and being able to time that out, I guess. So maybe it seems like a thing that is on the right path, but maybe isn't fully polished yet. Maybe they can tweak it down the road. I don't know.
I'm totally fine with it. I'm good. Like I have no passionate take. My only thing was it kind of stressed me out at first. I'm sure you saw like some graphics when the clock was like massive and visible on the broadcast. Like if you want to put it on the graphic, like the play clock or the shot clock, like I'm all for that. You know what I'm saying? But I don't need this.
How does the player see it though?
Well, it's there, but all I'm saying is like position the camera, position the clock somewhere on the field where the pitcher and all the infielders and outfielders obviously can see it. But I don't need this big, massive one. Put it like bake it in small, nice. Graphics are an important part of a sports broadcast, so make sure it's a part of that, and I'm good to go.
What kind of clock do you like? Like, not just in general, not in just this context I'm talking about, but like like an analog.
So it's funny you asked this. I recently changed the watch on my Apple or the face on my Apple Watch.
Oh, really? Yeah. What do you go with? This is a better question.
Okay. Well, so I used to be an analog guy because I kind of felt like a fraud having a digital, thing on my wrist. Like it's supposed to be a watch. You know what I mean? I feel like I'm cheating a little bit. But I was looking at a TikTok and I saw this really cool one. So I looked up, like I pulled up the Apple Watch app.
Can you show us? What's it look like?
I think I can. There are some.
It's obviously not going to be like perfect, but if you give it a tap or a little click, yeah, okay, interesting.
There are some Nike ones. So this is a Nike. You can't see the like little Nike check is in there, but it looks like it has the face of an analog, but it has the like big numbers. So now you actually know what time we're putting this together. 3:27. What do you do? You have all the. See, like that's too much for me.
It's tough when you. Why am I so bad at angling? It's here. Let me just take it off. It's tough because
if you take it off, it's gonna lock. If yours locks,
no, it doesn't. Well, I didn't mean to bring the battery up, but here you go. I have the modular. I also have the 3 series. I have an older one. I got this in like 2018, but it's maybe very me. It's a lot of practical information. I got like the weather and the time and the date and the
I have that too.
Activity rings and the text message and the
in my
battery.
Corners, I have top left, I've got the temperature outside. Top right, I have the weather conditions. Bottom right, I have access to like the workouts. Like I turn it on like when I run or when I walk the dog. And then bottom left, I have the activity rings. So
all right. So tweet at us at RJ Ochoa and at Brandon Gowton with the give us like a little screenshot or whatever. I want to see it of the
I don't think you can screenshot your watch, but like, take a picture.
Yeah, take a picture is what I mean.
With the hashtag Mixtape Watch.
There you go.
Okay, Brandon, we have things to get to for every single team. This is actually kind of the first time in a long time that's been the case. Welcome to the offseason. It is the week of the NFL Combine. You delayed us because you were writing about the coaching changes that the Philadelphia Eagles announced. We have to start with the reigning NFC East champions. The Eagles now have an offensive coordinator, now have a defensive coordinator that are obviously a part of their staff as they make their way through the Combine. So give us the latest and greatest as it pertains to the Birds.
Yeah, a lot of moving parts in Eagles world. Eagles have a new offensive coordinator, Brian Johnson. He was their quarterbacks coach. This was the worst kept secret, even really before Shane Steichen left. Brian Johnson was getting a lot of interest from other teams as their offensive coordinator. I know the Baltimore Ravens wanted to interview him. I know he was connected to like the Texans. He was connected to potentially Steve Wilkes if he stayed in Carolina. He's basically connected to everything. I think it's a really sensible hire. Jalen Hurts took a huge step, as we know, from 2021 to 2022. And I think Brian Johnson deserves a level of credit in there. I don't think it's only about Jalen Hurts. Everyone likes to point out how Brian Johnson has known Jalen Hurts since he was 4 years old because he played for Averion. I don't know how to say Jalen Hurts' dad's name. He played for Jalen Hurts' dad in high school, and then was obviously a good, or at least college football player for a while there at Utah. He's been an offensive coordinator in 3 different stops, so he has play calling and offensive coordinator experience as well. So I just thought it made a lot of sense. And when the Eagles, brought him on as quarterback coach, this always seemed to be the path. Like they were gearing him up to be the replacement. So I'm cool with that. And I think the only downside you would want to say is that back when the Eagles won the Super Bowl in February of 2018, they lost Frank Reich, and they lost notably their quarterbacks coach John DeFilippo. And the instant solution to promoting or replacing those guys was just like backfilling, in-house promotion. And I think you can kind of go down a wrong path there, in that you're not necessarily interviewing the best and brightest and kind of diversifying your search. But I don't think that's what the Eagles did here. I think this is a little bit different because Mike Groh, for example, had this background where he worked for the Rams, and they had a really bad passing offense. And Press Taylor was a guy known for coddling Carson Wentz too much. Whereas I don't think that's going to be an issue for Jalen Hurts, even though he has that relationship with Brian Johnson. That's not how Hurts is wired. And that's not how, from what I've seen, Johnson coaches. He's a tough coach. He's not easy on his players. So that's the big one on offense. And then I'm talking a lot here, but Sean Desai on defense is
just quickly.
Okay. Sure.
Brian Johnson, a Texas guy from Baytown, originally played his high school football there. Yeah. And was for some people, everybody's like, oh, NCAA football needs to come up. Brian Johnson, former NCAA football cover athlete. That's kind of a cool thing. In that sense, I can't think of a cover athlete that's become a coach, even the Madden cover athletes. Just hasn't worked out that way. Now that I know Drew Brees wanted to be a coach or whatever, but but Brian Johnson, I guess that's kind of it. So that's kind of cool.
I don't think we're going to see massive changes for the offense. Not to say none. Obviously, Brian Johnson's going to have his own ideas. He's going to call the plays. Nick Sirianni is still putting the plays into the play sheet. So there's still that process going on. Not really sure to expect or not really expecting massive changes on defense. That'll be a little bit different because, your Eagles are bringing in not assistant head coach. It's wrong to say assistant head coach. His official title with the Seahawks was associate head coach - defense. That was the official title. And they're bringing in Sean Desai, the first coordinator of Indian descent in the NFL in 2021, was the Bears defensive coordinator, joined the Seahawks last year. Interesting kind of background. He's 39, doesn't have really the extensive playing experience that you see with a lot of different coaches in the NFL. But went to Temple to get his doctorate after previously going to Columbia and going to school in Boston. And he survived in Chicago from Mark Trestman. That's crazy. That feels like insanely forever ago. In 2013, until basically not being retained by Matt Eberflus last year, and that's why he ended up with Pete Carroll. But so he survived multiple coaching changes from Trestman to John Fox to Nagy to and then going over to Pete Carroll to work with him. He's worked with
When did he join?
Carroll.
Not just last season?
He joined the Seahawks just last season.
Okay, gotcha.
He's worked with Pete Carroll. He's worked with Mel Tucker. He's worked with Chuck Pagano. He's worked with Mike Pettin, who is rumored to be joining the Eagles defensive coaching staff, possibly, which would make a lot of sense if you're bringing in someone relatively inexperienced and younger like Desai, who's only 39. You kind of have a veteran to lean on in that regard. So I like that hire. I think the Eagles defensive, and we need to get out in front of this. I need to write an article about this, RJ, because the Eagles defense is going to be worse next year, just because they're not going to have the same amount of talent that they did this season. So I don't want to hear like, oh, maybe Eagles fans should have been nicer to Jonathan Gannon. Maybe they missed. No, that is not like what's going on here. They're poised to take a step back. So all that being said, I think Desai offers some interesting things, and I'm fairly happy with both coordinator hires as you can.
They are pretty chalk. Not in a good way, right? Like chalk can be bad, like you talked about, like 5 years ago, whatever. But like it's pretty chalk in a like logical way. Like you can't really like. There's no need to like make a big swing, you know what I mean, or like do anything dramatic or do anything silly. My only pushback, and I hope I'm wrong, is you're talking about the defense is going to be worse. I mean, like what was my song that I sang all off season a year ago? It's like Cowboys, they're going to take a step back, right? There's going to be regression to the mean. I mean, they were better. I think you and I would both agree. Like the 2022 Cowboys defense was better than the 2021, and I definitely thought that was impossible. And now I think they were an exception as opposed to like the norm. But it's again, it just serves the idea that anything is possible.
Well, and the talent's I think going to be a lot different than like the Cowboys didn't have like the same potential defensive overhaul that the Eagles are going to have with Brandon Graham and Javon Hargrave and James Bradbury. We're at the point everyone being free agents.
It's combine week, so like everybody has a top whatever free agent list, like top 100, top whatever. And it's littered with Eagles, like depending on whichever one you look at, like, whether it's Pro Football Talk, PFF, NFL.com, like ESPN, like all the top, like I don't know how many Eagles are in the top 50 for most of them, but it's a lot, obviously. And so it's like, especially if you didn't do quarterbacks, you know what I mean? Like, because quarterbacks are inherently more valuable. Like I think Geno Smith is number 2 on NFL.com's top 100 list or top 101 list. And like, that's understandable because he's a quarterback. You know what I mean? Like, it just kind of is what it is. But like, if you're just talking about non-quarterbacks, like there's an argument that Eagles should be like well represented in the top 50.
I think ESPN had like 7 on their top 50. So there you go.
Yeah. So we'll see. It is almost time. I guess the next mixtape will be recorded after, or at least be released after the franchise tag deadline is out. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson.
The 7th, I believe.
Yeah, and the 7th is
a week from today.
It's a week. That's what I'm saying. The next mixtape will be released after the deadline. So we'll record after it's over. But Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, the most likely candidate to get tagged, I guess, on the Eagles.
Yeah, I don't think it's again likely to play out where the tag is actually utilized. I think if they tag him, which I would kind of be surprised, it's just a negotiating tool. I don't think the Eagles are in a spot where, because they just have so many free agents, you can't take on this massive like one player, one huge cap number, especially with the way they operate. They like to move money around and shove it into future years. So I really don't expect that to be anything more than a placeholder, if anything.
Right, but if a player is tagged on the Eagles, it stands to reason it would be Chauncey Gardner-Johnson.
I mean, I guess it could be Javon Hargrave in theory. If the Eagles really want to, like, I think it, it could be. It's probably not, but James, like, it could be someone else. But yes, I would say CJGJ is the most likely. I would not say a 0% chance for everyone else.
Okay, so I think that ties a bow on everything Eagles related. For now, we do have other things throughout the division to get to. Anything else that we're missing? Anything big? Anything massive?
I mean, probably, but I'm getting a phone call. It's from someone in Philadelphia. I don't know who it would be.
What's the area code in Philly? Like the most prominent one?
Well, 215 is the popular one, I believe.
Are you a 215? Well, actually, don't answer that. But
you want me to give out my phone number on there?
You almost did one time. We actually had to. Yeah. That was a long.
Ben Solak, once upon a time, accidentally, quote unquote.
Yeah, that's what you said. Number. That's what you said when we had to edit the other thing out when you accidentally.
Well, he deserves to be called out once again. By the way, speaking of Ben Solak, this is a big thing. This is Eagles related. So Ben and I do a once a year.
This is the Eagles rule proposal, right? That you're talking. I saw your tweet about this too.
Okay. Hashtag Eagles. Sorry, not hashtag Eagles. A hashtag jersey number analytics, where we analyze every single player on the roster based on their number. and it's really fun to
Because
do.
they matter. Like it is a subject that
They
matters.
absolutely matter.
Yeah. Well, and I'm just saying, I'm
100% matter.
I'm talking to the people who are like rolling their eyes at you, like, oh, come on, dude. Like, no, it matters. It's important.
I think those people are actually not. I think actually more people have come around to agreeing that they matter. But in any case, the Eagles did the actual like kind of real news, if you will, that stuff that impacts the game as they proposed the 4th and 15 onside kick alternative. Like again, like they do this like every year.
There was some chalk rule proposals. We knew that was going to come. We knew that
they do it every year.
Right, and we knew there was going to be a proposal to make roughing the passer reviewable. Like, again, those things really chalk. But this one was kind of new. I don't want to spoil or take away your thunder.
The Eagles have submitted a proposal for players to wear the number 0, which is overdue. I don't know. I didn't say anything about 00, which I liked a lot as well.
Old school.
But it's saying just 0 as far as I can tell, which makes sense. I mean, there's no good reason not to have it. What is the good reason not to have it?
What is the optimum position to wear number 0?
Because
00 is clearly a center.
Yeah, definitely some kind of lineman. I mean, a fullback could get away with a 00.
I think like your like ace returner should be 0. You know what I'm saying? Like if Kevontae Turpin wanted to wear 0, like something like that.
I would see that.
Like it has to be like an elite returner. You know, you can't just be like the dude who like handles it. Yeah,
can't be a punter. It's way too cool of a number for those dudes to be wearing it. I could see. So I don't think Hurts is going to change from 1 at this point. But I was thinking if the Eagles added like Jacoby Brissett or Marcus Mariota, I wouldn't mind the backup having 0. I could deal with. I could deal with it. I know it's maybe you could say it's too cool for a backup, but I think it's fine. Also, Devin Witherspoon, RJ, who is a popular Eagles mock draft target at number 10. I believe. No, sorry, wrong player entirely. The Oregon guy. Look, I'm not even into it. Christian Gonzalez.
Right, the
Oregon.
corner.
He wore number 0 at for the Ducks. So clearly, the Eagles are just preparing for him to wear that in Philly.
Well, Marcus Mariota joining the Eagles, by the way, in general, would be like the prince that was promised sort of thing, right? Like that would be funny if that finally did wind up happening.
It really would. But it makes sense. It's a logical fit.
Marcus Mariota, one of the stars of Quarterback, the new Netflix show that we're going to see.
We'll not be watching that.
Yeah, we know you won't. But even though I think the reason you would watch it the most would actually be the Kirk Cousins stuff, which is like kind of a testament to why you won't watch it. But anyway,
that and Mahomes also being on there.
Right. Well, yeah, you don't want to see the end of it, obviously. But anyway, last thing here, and then we'll get to the Cowboys. On the subject of the Chiefs, do you recall they were the team who proposed allowing the flexibility that we now see with jersey numbers,
which
right? Like
was horrendous, and they should be stripped of their Super Bowl title. I agree.
So stupid thing, but it was their. Do you remember their reasoning that they said? And in case anyone isn't aware, the fact that like receivers and corners and whatever were single digits.
This is why you get so mad about it.
Well, so the Chiefs petitioned for this to change, like this world to change, this new world that we live in that sucks. And their argument was there were players on their practice squad who were having to double up because there were limitations at the time, right? Like because linebackers can only wear certain numbers, whatever. Well, I saw a photo of the Chiefs Super Bowl roster like the day before the Super Bowl, and there were like 3 players wearing double digits, despite the fact that not every number was taken. So how can you be the team that's like, we have to change this rule so that we don't have this specific situation unfold and then have that situation unfold?
Absolute and total frauds. Wow.
Okay. The Dallas Cowboys. So I mentioned we're recording this on Tuesday. It's 20 till 4 p.m. Central Standard Time. Stephen Jones spoke this morning. We'll probably hear from Jerry at some point later on this week. He'll do the bus thing. So everybody check out Blog on the Boys. We'll cover that. And Mike McCarthy will obviously speak as well. But Stephen Jones, Jerry's bus in Indianapolis. He has a charter bus that's like his.
I don't think that's something like people just know. I mean, Cowboys fans, perhaps.
I guess
I don't think other people know about that.
Apologies. Jerry generally, at the combine specifically, kind of holds court for the local media on the bus. It's like a sort of State of the Union, if you will, at the combine. But that happens on the bus.
Is that the party bus that Dean Blandino, the former NFL head of officiating, was on?
It's the same bus in general. But yeah,
okay, so good to know.
Anyway, the Dean Blandino, who was the architect of the worst call that went against the Cowboys in the last like 25 years. Right. That feeds your theory. Totally. Anyway, so Stephen Jones spoke to the local media on Tuesday, and nothing he offered was breaking news, to be very clear. But the fact that it's confirmation of things is significant, right? Because it is, confirmation. So the headlines, number one, the Cowboys are very likely going to extend Dak Prescott this offseason. His cap hit obviously balloons. This is when his extension that he signed 2 years ago kicks in. That will happen. It makes sense. The discourse, when it does happen, will be stupid, but it is going to happen. In all likelihood, they can save about $22 million this year if they do extend him. Let me blitz through these and you can get to them.
Mm-hmm.
He said that they are likely going to use their franchise tag this offseason. He did not mention on who, but, like the Eagles, you can make an argument for not lower level players, but less likely situations, but they do exist. They're non-zero quantities. The most likely one, Tony Pollard, $10 million. He said that Zeke's making a lot of money. I think it's interesting. The day that the draft ended last year, he was asked about the team not drafting a running back. He said, well, Rico Dowdle's in a contract year. Tony Pollard's in a contract year. Zeke's making a lot of money. He's been saying that Zeke's making a lot of money for a year now. And he said that Zeke knows that. I'm starting to believe myself that they're probably going to cut him. That would be significant, though, just because he is a favorite of the front office. He said they believe in Michael Gallup coming back this year. He talked about how CeeDee Lamb and Trayvon Diggs are offseason priorities for them, how they want both of them around long term. They will very likely pick up CeeDee Lamb's fifth-year option this year. They don't have that luxury with Trayvon Diggs. He obviously is in a contract standoff with the team, entering the final year of his deal, so we'll see how that goes. And Tyron Smith is expected back this season, which is an interesting development. I can't imagine them cutting him. I think it's either Dallas or bust. Like a lot of people have suggested maybe they would trade him. I just don't think that's going to happen at this point. He also said that Terrence Steele and Tony Pollard are both expected to be ready for training camp. Terrence Steele obviously got hurt in that Texans game, and Jason Peters had to come in and play right tackle. But the fact that he said that Tony Pollard would be ready for training camp is why a lot of people are even more so like, well, they're probably going to tag him. Like they're talking about like this dude's going to be on the team at training camp. So that's kind of the blitzed version. Your questions.
Made me think of NFL Blitz. First thing on Dak. I mean, yeah, it's not even news from a standpoint of, I believe we talked about this like literally right after they lost to the 49ers, because that was part of my thing. I'm like, they have to pay him. They're literally in a spot where they have to extend it. They have to do. I mean, obviously, unless they just don't want him as their quarterback anymore. But they're not.
And my point then was, if they didn't, it would be telling, because it would say like, we're willing to kind of stomach this to have options in the future. But they're clearly, they're willing, and they should. I mean, like everyone can sit here,
cap numbers down.
Everyone can sit here and make all their jokes, but Dak is one of, like, call it what you want, top 7, 8, 9, whatever. He is one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL. It makes sense to keep him around long term. He's still very young on a relative scale. I mean, he's not the youngest successful quarterback in the NFL, whatever. So it makes sense, but obviously he's Dak Prescott, so it's going to be controversial.
It's what they had to do with Romo, basically. Well, in the past, like they kept having to basically like lengthen his contract or push more money into the years, because he would have these big cap numbers and they would have to bring those down so they could make moves and support him. It's not just unique to the Cowboys, to be clear, but I'm just saying, like, that's what happens. Like when you pay a quarterback and the cap numbers get big, you have to, and you still want them around, you have to give them more money so you can lower that money in the present by giving it more to them in the future. That is expected. As for Tony Pollard, I feel like it's a little surprising to me that they're not like shocking on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being like the most unexpected development, but like more than a 5, like maybe like a 6 or 7, because I felt like what have I been saying? The play is to not overpay. Don't put a ton of resources in at running back. How are you going to give this guy, what is it, $10 million a year? That's too much.
Well, $10 million for this year,
1 year.
but yeah,
but still, like, come on. That's not an optimal use of resources.
It's a rich, seemingly free agency class at the running back position, right? And even more so, we found out on Tuesday, Leonard Fournette is expected to be, not that like he's amazing, but like the point is,
draft
like,
seems to be good too, though.
Right. Well, and again, it's the Cowboys. So Steven was asked about the idea of drafting, and he was like, well, you clearly don't want to draft a running back in the top half of the first round. Really, Steven? Okay. But said, in the back, and like, that's why, like, I do think we've gone a little far as like a football society with the running backs don't matter take. Like, they matter, and like, I'm fine spending, like, you want to spend a second round pick on one or whatever, even like a late first, like Josh Jacobs was a late first round pick, whatever. There are examples that work out. So like, but I am a little bit too scarred from that. Like, I'm fine admitting that. So like, I want nothing to do with Bijan Robinson, but like, they're gonna keep that pot stirred just because that's like the Cowboys way. But it would, like, it's so stupid to me that like anyone in one breath can be like, well, they're gonna tag Tony Pollard and draft Bijan Robinson with the 26th overall pick. Like, dude, what are y'all doing? Like, but I'm not like bothered or upset or like pumped about the Parr thing. Like I've said the entire offseason, like I'm fine if they tag him. I'm fine if they don't. I'm fine if they bring him back on a long-term deal. They are very clearly focused on finding more explosive playmakers. He is one. So like I do think that they feel stuck. Like, man, we have a shortage of explosive playmakers, and we know he's one. So we're going to keep him in tow. We have CeeDee Lamb, and we have to utilize the cap room that we're going to create by extending Dak Prescott to add to that, talent pool.
So you are expecting Zeke to get cut, but
if I had to guess, yeah.
Do you think? Give me a percentage chance it happens.
I'd say like I'm 55 to 60% there in terms of my own personal guess.
Then give me a percentage chance that, I guess, in the scenario where he does get cut, he is playing on the Cowboys next season. Like last year, for example, which is the impetus of the question, the Eagles cut Fletcher Cox, but then they brought him back like a few days later. Do you think it is possible that they could do something like that?
I think it's possible, but not that exact same way. Like I could see them cutting him, I don't know, like in, March, obviously, like when, like this is March, but like around free agency the next 2 weeks, and then him not being on a team, right? And then like, the summer happening, whatever, and them getting ready to go to camp, or them being at camp and then being like, what, we just, you know what I mean? Like I could see it being like a late addition sort of arrival sort of thing. I could see that. And then being like, while Zeke wasn't on the team, he went, and he went to wherever, and the Cowboys, they always thought this was possible. They never even cleared out. They never replaced his locker. Like, some sort of like lame story like that. I could totally see that happening.
I think he needs to be gone, though, is my point on it. Like, I think if he's gone, he has to, it's not just about the current contract. It's about the usage too. And there's a sentimental value.
It's about getting more explosive playmakers. Like that's the thing. Like
because an opportunity cost. Because if he's on the team, he's going to get touches. That's the reality. Even if they cut him or whatever and bring him back and like, and people are going to be like, but it's okay because it's a smaller role. It's still too much. It's whatever he is being given. It's not the optimal, again, use of resources.
So one of the other things that Steven said, and again, not that this was shocking, but that moving on from Kellen Moore and his decision to take over play calling was an entirely like Mike McCarthy led thing. Again, not shocking, but like, cool, good for you, Steven. Like letting your head coach like make head coach decisions. Like what a novel concept. But so like to me, and I've said this, obviously for the last few weeks or whatever, like if they do move on from Zeke, if he's not a part of the offense, to me, and this isn't said like with any like negative tone or anything, it would be an indication that Mike McCarthy won. You know what I'm saying? Like, because Mike McCarthy's vision for the offense is clearly different than what the Cowboys have been for the last 5, 6, 7 years, the Zeke era. And so like that, like you should like live and die with that. You know what I'm saying? Like you're here now, like you're about to be on year 4 of the Mike McCarthy era. Like we can all sit here and make jokes and talk and defend and debate or whatever, but like you have to know, like go at this year the full McCarthy way, the McCarthy project. And if it doesn't work, cool, we'll figure this out in 2024. But you have to do that. And I do think that we've seen McCarthy slowly winning out, slowly in his 3 years. Zeke's utilization has been less. Tony Pollard's has been more. And to your point, if Zeke is not a part of this team, I do think it is an indication of Mike McCarthy's vision of the offense being faster and more explosive. And that's obviously what matters the most. The last thing on this subject, because you have to do this if you're the Cowboys, they have been connected to Bobby Wagner, who was released obviously by the LA Rams. And they've been connected to Jalen Ramsey, who wants a trade, obviously, away from the LA Rams. But the fact that he wants a new deal is kind of like the, whoa, what's going on here? Every Cowboys fan, though, is terrified that the Eagles are going to ship away the 10th pick to get Jalen. And like, how could you not? Like, I would totally do that if I was the Eagles. You know what I'm saying? Like, so
no. You think that's a no-brainer for them to trade 10 for Ramsey?
I would totally do that. Like if I was the Eagles, you know what I mean? Like if you could upgrade, because
it's a can of worms.
It's an upgrade from James Bradbury. Like, and that's not like
the
an
money.
insult to James.
I just don't think it works out, though. I don't think it works out from like a money and age perspective. Like the Eagles have like a lot of people to pay, and like and they're paying Jalen Hurts. Like they need young talent that cost control talent.
The Jalen Hurts payment doesn't impact me this year if I'm the Eagles. You know what I'm saying? Like you can stomach it. Like, and if there's a team who I trust to figure out that complication, it's the Eagles. But I would love to see the Cowboys do that. Like. One of our shows on Monday here at Blogging the Boys was talking about like what would be the move that suggested to Cowboys fans that the Cowboys were truly like being aggressive, right? Like what would be, and actually I'll ask you that. What is a hypothetical thing that you could say, wow, they're actually doing it. Like they're actually getting it. They're getting a little bit more creative here.
Finally signing Odell Beckham Jr. after the 300 days of, no, I'm kidding. I mean, I would just like that storyline to go away. I don't care where he signed. Just sign somewhere because I'm tired of seeing. Wow. This is a whole different thing. the use of the eyeball emojis has just been completely ruined. On everything's eyeball emojis, and it's just like it's so been so diluted in water. Like eyeball emojis should be
You know what you're
like
gonna hate? I'm sorry to interrupt you. You're gonna hate
what?
if and when the Cowboys sign Odell, when like the ESPN
Yeah,
account tweets out
yeah.
the vertical, like
The
imagine this
trifold, yeah, of the like three of CD and
Odell
and
and
Odell.
Pollard and it's
eh,
I can't wait for that day. Okay, but for real though, what is like I think Ramsey like trading for him is that move to me. And like I would
yeah,
totally you want 26? Fine, take it. There's nobody who I can take with 26 that is going to give me what Jalen like in the contract thing. And a lot of Cowboys fans are like, let's trade for Ramsey and let's let Trayvon play the final year of his contract out, right? And if Diggs walks in free agency a year from now, you have Jalen freaking Ramsey. And you know what I mean? Like you move on. Now you could have had Jalen Ramsey for the last 7 years. You had just drafted him, but like water under the bridge. We don't have to relitigate that situation. So that I think is the one for me. That's what would get me to believe that the Cowboys are finally taking this a little bit seriously.
yeah. I was tempted to say DeAndre Hopkins too. I feel like that's kind of been
Yeah,
bandied
fine.
about.
Put him in the same box. Totally with you.
But I would say even maybe less so though, because Hopkins is a little bit older and also coming off a couple seasons here that have been at least definitely by his standards down-ish, and that might not all be his fault, but still, I would say Ramsey is very much in his prime. He has not really shown signs of slowing, at least at the numbers that I'm looking at. Like I think he only had only a 84.5 pass rating allowed last year. That was worse than the previous 2 years, 71.1 and 68.8, but still very good. Yeah, I mean, I guess it would be him.
Yeah, I'm fine. But again, I think Hop is in that mold. I don't think T. Higgins is getting traded, but like anything like that, like you want, like if you are attacking a situation like that, like somebody like a bigger playmaker.
I don't think that counts,
you know what I mean?
though. I think it has to be someone like AJ Brown level of like just this is established star player. I like Higgins. I think he's good, but I think that's a little bit different than
maybe
Hopkins
I'm
and
like
Ramsey.
I'm stretching the parameters just a little bit to include him, but he's closer to that than he's not. You get what I'm saying? But you're right. But yeah, Hopkins, Ramsey specifically, I'm all down for. So okay, that's the Cowboys side of things. Let's take a break and then we'll get to the other two teams in the division. Welcome on.
Wow, we're back from break.
Welcome on. We're
really
back.
A great time.
Wow. Did you see, Brandon, that Jeff Probst is starting a podcast? He's our competitor now.
I did. Oh, that's why, Rob. Okay, interesting. Because I was listening to the.
I haven't listened to whatever you're talking about, but yeah, Jeff Probst is starting a podcast where after every episode of Survivor, they will not. He was very specific to say in the TikTok I saw, this is not a recap, which was it was almost like he was like, this is not the lame ass RHAP. He was like, this is not a recap. This is going behind the scenes in terms of how we put the episode together, which is cool. But like,
sure,
I'd rather listen to Survivor Know-It-Alls, Jeff.
Well, I might have to check it out to see if it's any good. But I mean, I guess I'll listen to Rob Has a Podcast, which everyone should listen to Rob Has a Podcast. And hey, no better time to get in on Survivor than tonight.
Between you and I, who is Rob and who is Steven Fishbach?
I think that's very clear. I think it's very clear who is who. I think you and I both know the answer to that, and the listeners will have to figure that out.
Okay, the New York, once again, good at football Giants, making a move. All right,
wow,
big time action happening with the G-Men. They are going to be releasing Kenny Golladay on March 15th. I mean, so like this is kind of an awkward thing when teams do this. It's like we're gonna cut you, but we're not doing it yet. But so like he's effectively cut. He's out. Giants moving on after 2 years. Not an exaggeration to say maybe the worst free agent signing in New York Giants history. Certainly one of the worst like general free agent signings in recent NFL history.
Do you recall how many touchdown catches that Kenny Golladay caught in his Giants tenure?
I do. I tweeted this today for us. So, but I didn't
know.
Do
you recall the defensive coordinator who he scored it against?
It was one, and it was against Jonathan Gannon. His only touchdown ever for the Giants came in his final regular season game, and it took the addition of a 17th game, by the way.
And who threw
it? Davis Webb?
Yeah. Davis Webb now coaching for the Broncos.
Davis Webb's a great coach. And, I know it's so awkward to say because he's actually not a coach. I mean, I've only known him, but I was talking to Kenny Golladay and he said, he throws
Russell wasn't talking to Kenny Golladay.
I don't know. But I hadn't done that in a while. Anyway, good for the Giants. Like, I love that. Like, don't just stick it out. You know what I mean? Like, move on. He's not helping you. And like, let Kenny move on too. I will say, like, if the Cowboys took a flyer on Kenny Golladay at this point, like, you just have to pay like his base salary. Like, I'd be interested. You know what I mean? At this point, like, I'd kick those tires. Like, if you're really desperate. I mean, yeah, like I'm not like pumped.
I think you got to save that for a team who's like rebuilding and is like desperate. Like I don't know, some team that's.
Kudos to the Giants. Like, they finally get this. I'm proud of them for being a functional NFL team.
Yeah, I mean, this is part of the cleanup that Joe Shane is still kind of working through here. And speaking of the wide receiver position, and you talked about splash for the Cowboys. I feel like the Giants need to find their own version of the AJ Brown trade. Now, that's not obviously an easy thing to do, given how good of a player that is and how rare those guys are available. And it was not just an every offseason kind of thing. But I feel like they have to find that kind of move. And I think specifically the Giants have to attack wide receiver. I know the Cowboys need receiver help. That's but like even more so for the Giants have to find their guy. And I think that's what this kind of underscores. It's already known, but this kind of is like, hey, Galladay's gone. We have to find the guy. And there's going to be risk. This is the downside of, paying all this big money and it doesn't work out. But I really think, especially if you're trying to find out more about Daniel Jones or elevate him. If Daniel Jones is going to make a jump, I think we saw last year the value in different areas of the NFL, such as Tyreek Hill in Miami for Tua, like the value that this elite kind of receiver can have. And I think they have to find that guy. I don't know who that is off the top of my head. Maybe it is T. Higgins. Maybe it is finding a way to throw money at him or something. But they have to find that guy.
I agree with you entirely. I think it's not the worst thing in the world for the Giants. I know we know this, but like if Daniel Jones plays out the year on the tag, if I was Daniel Jones, I wouldn't do that. Just because like you're never gonna have the same like level of negotiating power. Like even if you're a playoff team next year, like the fact that it was this like come from nothing story, like that energy is so hot. Like you can't replicate that a year from now unless you like won the Super Bowl, obviously. So I mean, yeah, like I was just like, when you were kind of describing that, like, what if this is impossible, but like, what if they traded for like Justin Jefferson, right? Like, what if Justin Jefferson was like, hey, I want out. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm sick of this. Like, he needs a new deal. I mean, yeah, it's not like, obviously like Devontae Adams was traded a year ago. You know what I mean? Like it's definitely like within the realm of like total possibility. Imagine that. Like, that would be sick. Yeah. Like, obviously we would hate it, but like, that would be kind of sick.
Yeah, I think at that point too, like that's you're going forward with Jones, right? Like you're like, we're betting on him. We're getting Justin Jefferson, and let's ride. Like this is what we're doing. Not Broncos country. Let's ride Giants country. Let's ride. I don't know. It's so weird. We've talked about this already, so we don't really need to rehash the entire debate. But that is the big question of the Giants right now. Are they going to extend Daniel Jones? Are they going to franchise tag him? I'm going to say, in terms of what I think we already talked about should. I think it's a little bit more interesting here to maybe talk about what we think will, based on reading the tea leaves. Now, I'm looking at this article from Big Blue View here, and Joe Shane spoke at the Combine on Tuesday, and he said, quote, "To franchise Danny, I don't think that's the best for the organization, and I don't believe it's best for Daniel, especially as we try to build the team around him." So I think they're going to get an extension done with Jones. I think that's what they're going to do, and I think they're going to tag Saquon.
Should they tag Saquon? Like, I mean...
I mean, it's better than extending him for sure. I mean, I would not. Extending him, wrong move.
I was reading.
I'm going to say yes. I'm going to say actually yes. They should franchise Saquon. You can get one more year out of him. I think that's fine. But yeah, you can't give him that big extension.
I was reading a Sigmund Bloom article about, it was like through a fantasy lens, but it was talking about like what we learned about the running back position last year. And obviously there was a lot of like love given to Christian McCaffrey, and obviously he had a unique season being traded. But I was thinking like, who were the sort of like big name running backs that I would bet on, right? I was thinking about it like from a fantasy perspective, right? But like, you have to be like I wouldn't put Josh Jacobs there. Right? Like I'm talking like, that have been a household name for like a few seasons at this point. And the two I would bet on in 2023 would be Christian McCaffrey and Saquon Barkley. Like I would bet on Saquon. Like I wouldn't bet as much on say Dalvin Cook or Alvin Kamara, but I would definitely bet. And I'm not even talking like fantasy. I'm just talking like general production. I think I'm willing to buy that Saquon's resurgence is real to a legitimate degree. I'm not saying he's going to be like a 2,000-yard rusher or anything, but like I think he will be a viable part of the New York offense if he's back in 2020.
I think there's a reason enough to believe that for 2023. Yes, that's why like the tag is almost perfect in this situation for them, because it is the perfect tool. Uniquely, a lot of the times the tag is not a great tool. In this situation, I think it makes sense probably for, I mean, obviously if you're the player, you're always going to ideal, like for the long-term deal. But I think Saquon needs to prove it. There was enough of a track record before this season, which was why we were down on him. And there's a lot of concern, and just obviously the nature of the position where I don't think you can give him that long-term deal. I think you let it ride it out one more year and see how it goes with him.
Anything else on the Giants? Oh, by the way, Eli Manning was on Good Morning Football on today, the day we're recording this. Did you see any of this, by the way?
No.
So he was asked which of the Super Bowl wins was his favorite. Obviously, he has two of them. And I was going to ask you, which one is less fluky?
I think the first one is less fluky. Yeah, easily.
See, he said the second. He didn't say it like he wasn't asked like which one's less fluky, but he was like talking about it. And I kind of like bought his reasoning. He was like, well, the first one, like nobody thought we were even gonna make the playoffs. You know what I mean? Like he was like the second, we were kind of like a more in control team at least all season long.
They barely won the division though.
I know, but they at least won it. You know, they didn't win it in 2007. But they still won it. You know what I mean? Like they hosted a playoff game. Like again, like I think if I had like I think the 2011 Giants were better than the 2007 Giants. I guess is my point.
Nope. That 11 team is the flukiest run ever, and I always maintain that. The other one, it's harder to remember because it was so far long ago now. But I remember thinking like at least the pass rush was really good on that team. I believe it was
still really good in 11. I mean,
not the same. No,
I mean they didn't have Strahan obviously, but anyway. So like at the end of it, at the end of his like interview, it was the Good Morning Football crew. So like Jason McCourty's a part of it. And Devin McCourty, obviously, like the McCourty twins. No, Jason. I'm sorry, Jason is obviously a part of Good Morning Football, but Devin is a part of the week this week on Good Morning Football. And so Eli was doing the interview with them, and the like question was like, "Hey, one of the McCourty twins had their first career interception off of you. Like, who do you think it was?" Like they were just kind of having some fun with him, and he guessed Jason, and he was right. But it was really funny because he was like,
"Well, if you're asking that question, that's obviously the answer."
Well, no, it was one of the two. I mean, you know,
but like it would be more. The more surprising answer is Jason, so that's what it would be. It wouldn't be like it's too obvious to say Devin.
Why is it less? Why is it
Devin's a much better player than Jason was?
Well, I mean, but still, like they both had a lot of interceptions. Anyway, so it was Jason. But Eli's answer, he was like, "Well, I threw a lot of them." It's like, so I kind of thought that was funny, but they showed the interception, and it was when Jason was in Tennessee, and it was actually a left-handed throw. It was like down near the goal line. Like I think they were on like
that.
They were kind of so they were kind of, and it made me miss the old Titans uniforms. They were the aqua pants, I guess like light blue pants with the white jersey, and I loved the white Tennessee Titans helmet. Anyway, so Eli scrambling and like sort of like pitched the ball to his left hand from his right hand, and then like shot put it, and then it got tipped, and then Jason McCourty caught it. So it's like, I'll respect Jason McCourty, but it's like this wasn't even really like an authentic interception. It's not like you broke on the ball. Like, you know, pick's a pick, but still. Actually, and it was his first career interception, Jason McCourty's.
Oh, okay.
So
not Eli's?
No. So, but his first career interception, and he was trying to be really nice. You could tell Jason was like, I remember thinking my first career interception came from a legend. Okay. We're using the word legend a little bit loosely now. Anyway, anything else before we move on?
How do you feel about the word legend as like awesome? Like, you know, when someone is saying like let's say you told me about this great thing that happened in your life, and I might say like, oh, awesome. Like, right. Like as an acknowledgement of that. What if I said legend instead? What if I was like legend
instead of awesome? Legendary?
Yes. I just said legend. Like you were like, hey, I just found $20 on the street. And I'd be like, legend. How do you feel if I said that?
Yeah, I'm not cool with that. I do think that How I Met Your Mother did to the word legendary what like social media has done to the eyeball emoji. You know what I'm saying? Like we kind of can't use it anymore. So
yeah, I agree with that.
That season finale or series finale, was 10 years ago this spring. 10 years ago today, by the way, the Miami Heat released their Harlem Shake video.
Wow.
Yeah.
I know someone who wrote for How I Met Your Mother, and they just got married. So congrats to them.
Wow. A true love story. Okay. The Washington Commanders are last, which they will be for all of the offseason because they finished in last place. I think we have to start here, although I know you want to start somewhere else, but They did place the first franchise tag of the offseason on defensive tackle Deron Payne. That is the most prevalent information. I'm sorry, Brandon. $19 million for Payne here in 2023 at the very least. We'll see if they get a long-term deal done with him. Every team's going to probably say that the tag is a placeholder, like you talked about, with whether it's Chauncey Gardner-Johnson or Javon Hargrave, Tony Pollard, whoever. But Deron Payne officially has been tagged by the Commanders.
Yeah. He has. That's my analysis of the move.
You just really want to get through this, don't you?
I mean, I don't really have a lot to say about Deron Payne. It feels like it's not ideal, and it feels like it is a placeholder to me. But then again, you have John Allen there, and I don't know if they want to pay all that money to really great I mean, in theory, sure, but in actuality, I don't know if they will.
Well, first tag done, one tag down. We'll see how many ultimately come out. Brandon has been living for this moment. So Deron Payne was tagged. The Commanders announced on Monday in a tweet that Carson Wentz has been released. What a shock. Who could have seen this coming? The inspiration for the first ever emergency edition of the NFC's Mixtape was actually so disappointing that his release didn't garner an emergency episode.
No, I mean, look, I get a lot of things wrong. We all do. That's just life. And
right.
Definitely
so every Eagles fan was
analysis.
like, Carson Wentz is better than Dak Prescott. You were all wrong. It's okay.
I mean, his backup's better than Dak Prescott. So,
but is he?
Just took them to the Super Bowl.
I mean,
we don't need to get into this, but you brought it up. So anyway, is he? Yeah, I mean, definitely is. Anyway, I mean, was Dak Prescott almost?
Is Carson Wentz better? That was the hill that a lot of Eagles fans died on. It's okay. Y'all were wrong.
For one point, he definitely, and point in time, he absolutely was. And then he did not age well for many reasons. What do you want to say? I mean, you don't think he was ever better than Dak? That's just not true.
I'm sorry. That's not what I was going to say. I was actually going to say, but I didn't want to set us down a tangent. I think Carson is actually like a scary sort of hypothetical if you're a football fan, and your quarterback blows up, because Carson had the blow up year in his second season, right? And then it was like, well, boom, here he is. He's arrived. This is who he's going to be. And then it all fell apart. It can disappear just like that.
There's a lot of reasons for that. A lot of them tied back to Carson Wentz. So I was talking about how get wrong a lot, and people want to dunk on me for those kind of things. That's fine. Go for it. I was wrong about Jalen Hurts, obviously, but if you're gonna do that, then I need more than zero credit for when. If you're gonna dunk on me for the wrong stuff, I can't just have complete silence when was dead right about Carson Wentz to a T, dating back to 2021, early on.
Who was standing for him in 2021?
RJ is not a minority opinion at that time. It was maybe more 50-50, I would say, or at least closer to that. Where
maybe in your world,
we need to fix Carson Wentz. We have to build. It's just Doug was terrible. It's all Doug's fault. Doug broke him. Doug sucks. There was a lot of that. That was not a minority opinion, and it was very apparent that was not the case, and that Carson Wentz was a loser, and people wanted to just. And I guess this is part of on it that touches on it. That's a pet peeve of mine when people just dismiss anything that is reported that they think is not true because they don't want it to be true. It's like, Carson Wentz isn't a jerk or selfish or whatever or uncoachable. That's just the media making stuff up. I mean, it wasn't. I think there's a lot of evidence, and clearly we're seeing that bear out now. That was not the case. And look, Carson Wentz deserves credit for the Eagles winning a Super Bowl. They don't win a Super Bowl without him. He put them in such a great position. So that is absolutely true. More than one thing can be true. At the same time, it's very easy to root against him and kind of not be, heartbroken about his downfall here, because he was brought on by himself. And it was so predictable that he was going to fail with the Commanders. We said at the time of the emergency podcast that you referenced that it was crazy for the Commanders to be like, you know what? This guy who couldn't get it right with the guy that everyone thought was going to fix him, Frank Reich, we can actually fix him. That was so obviously not going to work out. And I don't want to hear that, it wasn't the biggest risk because they didn't take on as much, because they were able to cut him after a year and they only gave up a couple thirds. No, it was a complete waste of time, predictably, the whole time. So you wasted stuff that could be going to actually building the team in a long-term way for just a one season that was a total wash and a total waste.
I don't really have a passion to take on this. I think Carson's been so bad that it is kind of
It's not even fun to dunk on him anymore.
That's like, it's just kind of like whatever. I mean, and it like it literally went as everybody thought it would go. You know, it's like maybe people. I'm not like saying you're lying, but maybe people were standing for him in 2021. Nobody was standing for him when the Commanders traded for him. Nobody.
No.
You know, even Commanders fans are like, this is stupid. Like you're literally just going to waste a year of our lives, and that's exactly what happened. Like it was so bad. It was so there was never like a point. You know what I'm saying? Like, there was never like a well, maybe they got this right. You know what I mean? Like there was never anything to the like Commander Carson era that worked out where you were like, huh, you know, whatever. No,
well, if anyone may have been a little favorable to him, I don't think you were like super favorable to him, but you were so against the Colts that you were willing to.
I was proven totally right. Like in the like if
but
we're
you were
like
willing to absolve some of the blame. I feel like not all of it, but some of it on Wentz, and I think it was just a case of more than one thing can be true. The Colts deserved a ton of blame, and so did
Wentz. What I did not like is Carson was clearly at the time that the Colts even acquired him.
Scapegoat. I mean,
like that's what I'm saying. They had no issue making somebody who was like some NFL, like some athletes, like are kind of like more naturally scapegoated than others. You know what I'm saying? Like it's easier to scapegoat some athletes versus others. And Carson is one of those. Now, a lot of that is his own fault, to your point. So I'm not like admonishing him in any way, or I'm not exonerating him in any way. But like the Colts manipulated that, and the Colts took advantage of that. The Colts took complete and total advantage of the fact that he was a scapegoatable player. And they dunked on that despite their own inefficiencies. You know what I'm saying? Like the Colts, like what did the Colts? The Commanders were better off.
We don't need to relitigate the Colts part of it.
I only wanted to say one part about this. You know how like you can look at I don't know, like Patrick Mahomes, right? You can be like, how many like coaches has Patrick Mahomes gotten paid, right? Like all these people who have gotten promotions. You know what I mean? Like and whatever. And we talked about Eric Bieniemy last week and moving to Washington, incidentally. But like. I feel like Carson Wentz is the opposite. Like, like I feel like everyone who's been closely connected to him has actually only like lost their job, and they've wound up getting different ones, obviously. But like, I know you don't want to talk about the Colts, but like Frank Reich kind of staked his entire Colts reputation on him, and it blew up in his face. And because of that, he had to, he got fired. I mean, and rightfully so. Like he did a terrible job, but you get my point.
Yeah, and then but I think it was also clear that teams saw Wentz as like the debilitating factor. To the point of where another team was willing to hire Doug Peterson, even though he broke Carson Wentz. And another team was willing to hire Frank Reich, clearly, even though he tied his wagon to Carson Wentz mistakenly. So, they're seeing value in those people despite the airings that were connected to Wentz. The thing that's most interesting about Wentz moving forward is
will he tolerate a backup role?
Do you think so?
I mean, I think it depends.
I know I asked you the question, so sorry to jump in, but what is left for him? What is left for Carson Wentz to really do? Rehab his image? Not happening, bro. Like, I think the ship has sailed on that. I don't think that's happening. And also, it just seems so unlike him to be willing to take a backup role. It seems so beneath him in terms of why would he need to? He's made $128 million from NFL contracts alone. I'm sure he's made a ton more money in endorsements and all that. He has
what was ever like a notable, like, you know what I'm saying? Like you can name a quarterback and think of like national brands. Like what was a Carson one? I can't think.
I don't know, but there's something at some point somewhere, even if it's he's made plenty of money is the point. He has children now. He's happily married as far as I can tell. He's been through so many different kinds of injuries, not just like, a serious injury, but like all parts of his body. So I'm sure he's like hurting or feeling a serious head injury, like the shot he took from Clowney. I just think, I don't think there's any shame in walking away and this being the end. I think it would be the right thing for him to do. And I don't think it's like, oh, he's a failure, he's walking away. I think, no, it's actually a really smart move if he does. He has a Super Bowl ring. I know he didn't play in the game, but like there's nothing like left for him to accomplish really, other than like, oh, maybe he can be a decent player again at best. Like I just don't get the upside in him playing again. I know he's stubborn, so maybe that's the part I'm just missing, and that he's going to force the issue. And I will say, I don't think he's I'm ruling out if there is a Teddy Bridgewater situation, like where there's just an unexpected need for a starter. Sure, I can see him jump in, but that's also very rare. I don't see what's left for him to play for.
I mean, the only thing that is left for him to play for is to have, because he's not going to be a starter, right? Is to have like, I mean, ironically, like a Nick Foles, run, right? Like that would literally be it. Like you mentioned, like a Teddy Bridgewater thing, like somebody, that it was his backup that was traded, Sam Bradford that was traded, to the Vikings when that happened. Like it would just be that. I mean, like you said, like what's left? Make more money. I mean, you know what I mean? Like enjoy. Like this is his profession. It's a game he loves. I mean, like whatever. I mean, like but I think you're much closer to like if Patrick Mahomes is the like pinnacle of like quarterback play in the NFL right now, you're much closer to like Chase Daniel. You know what I'm saying? Like just backup cash and checks than you are like dude who's like elite front and center every single week. And some people, like some quarterbacks are fine with that. You know what I mean? Like some quarterbacks are like, I actually think this is kind of like a rich backup quarterback free agency class. Like Teddy Bridgewater's a free agent. Cooper Rush is a free agent. Marcus Mariota's. I mean, Minshew. Yeah, like there are a lot of like high quality backups now. I think Carson is probably in that mix. Like I think he belongs in the mix with those quarterbacks more than he does the mix of like starting quarterbacks of the NFL.
It's just like if he's a backup, he's a backup on Madden because of a talent level, but he's just not a backup in terms of personality. That's not the things about him. That is not what you want in a backup. That's not what you value. Like a player who knows his role and is like, almost like a coach and amenable to coaching and having a good relationship with teammates. That's none of these things describe him. So I really don't see it. Maybe I'm discounting again the possibility of a team being dumb and him just being so stubborn. Because maybe it's somewhere where like he theoretically has a chance to start. I don't know, but I think it just doesn't make sense to me, and it's sad. It's sad what his career has become. But again, he brought it on himself, really, in a lot of ways.
Well, time will tell where he winds up. If he does, obviously play again. We'll see. Again, I don't think he's like a terrible backup option, but again, a lot of that is like predicated on the idea of him being willing to do that. But I do think so. Dak Prescott, clearly the best quarterback drafted in 2016, but there was a time where it was like, okay, that's true, but Carson is definitely number 2. Like, man, Jared Goff like really bounced back. Like after that Rams trade, like Jared Goff has like now, like obviously this conversation's been over for a while, but like it is Dak Prescott, Jared Goff, and I guess Carson Wentz is like, but the only one who like technically has a Super Bowl ring is the 3rd best quarterback in that class. That's amazing when you think about it.
Wentz will be 31 in December, by the way. So he's like, not exactly a spring chicken. I'm also 31, but whatever. Anyway, so what else was I going to say? Oh, spinning it forward, if we can. Ron Rivera was asked about Sam Howell at the NFL Combine.
Like, why is anybody taking this seriously? Like everybody who's like,
what do you mean?
Go ahead and say your thing. Like, do you really believe that they're going forward with this? Like,
what do you mean?
Go ahead, read the quote.
Well, basically, I didn't see the full quote, but I saw the paraphrase version of the fact that they're going to go with Sam Howell. He has a right to start. He has a chance to start. They're not going in with him as their undisputed starter as much as they're going in with him and he has a chance to start.
I mean, I'm not like saying Ron Rivera is a liar, but like, do you really believe that? Like, I think it's that time.
Yeah, why not?
Well, because it's like, what has free agency happened? Has like the draft happened? You know what I mean? Like how, like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't
think Howell has any chance to start this year.
No, but I don't think it would be responsible for the Commanders to be like, that's it, we're good, we don't have to add anybody. Like it's like we sit here and talk about
that's
like
what they're saying though. I don't think they're saying they're going to stick with him no matter what. I think they're saying he might add someone, and also
he's the best
Sam
quarterback
in the mix
on the roster right now. But I think they are undeniably going to.
It's only him, really.
I think they're undeniable. That's what I'm saying. Like, so we're making this big deal. Like, well, they're saying the only quarterback on the roster is in line to start. Like, duh. You know what I mean?
I don't think they're saying he's in line to start. I think they're saying he's in line to have a chance to start.
Of course he is. He's the only quarterback on the roster. I just think this like thing, this idea got ballooned a little bit. I actually thought, so this kind of spins us to our last sort of like, I guess, subject here. Like the volume that line got, or that idea got, the like play that I thought was so strange. And I thought, man, that really does like prove that like, as dysfunctional as they are, the Washington franchise can still move some headlines, right? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like you say something as simplistic as the only quarterback on our roster is in line to contend to start, but like that's the power of that brand. Like it is still a high, value brand as far as NFL teams are concerned, again, despite everything. And so there was the Don Van Natta report that came out on Tuesday, the day we were recording this, in ESPN. I mean, I can't even list all the details. It was a disparaging report. I don't know if you have like a SparkNote version that you want to get to. Our friends at Hogs Haven wrote about it, so everybody should go read that. A lot of great, like, kind of, assessments of this happening across like NFL media on Tuesday. More indictments, not literally, but more indictments against Dan Snyder and his ownership, his like minority owners now coming out and going on record. Like, it's all a mess. It is starting to feel more and more and more like the end of the Dan Snyder era is upon us. But I know Washington fans have gotten their hopes up for that in the past.
It's getting late early. Is that the phrase? It's early, late. It's getting early, late. I think it's whatever, whatever one of those applies is the one I mean. Yeah, I mean it's coming into an end, and really the big question to me, as an outside observer, well, as someone interested in the Commanders not being good, the biggest question to me is Bezos going to buy them or not? Because that's a game changer. If Bezos buys the Commanders, that is everyone in the division should be extremely concerned. It's not even about necessarily it's like not like wow, I think Jeff Bezos is great, or it's not even a statement on whether you think about him in terms of his like it's just the money. Like the fact that they're gonna have like infinite resources and presumably an owner. I don't know, maybe not. But the fact that they could have someone like that wealthy and that fiscally powerful, that's something everyone in the NFC should be concerned about.
Also, that energetic. You know what I mean? Like, hey,
Sure.
let's be good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, because some owners like, and not just in football, but like some owners are like, hey, let's make some money. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But like an owner who's like, hey, let's just
Yeah.
be really good.
Because it's not like we need to make more money. It's like I have a ton of money. Yeah.
Right. And like as we enter, like here's the part that will actually be like annoying. As we enter a world where like streaming or whatever becomes like more and more a part of our lives. Like we obviously know that Thursday Night Football is on Amazon Prime. We know that the Sunday Ticket is now on YouTube TV. Like if like the owner of Amazon gets involved with the Commanders, like we're gonna get like that team shoved down our throats. You know what I'm saying? Like as far
I
as
wonder
like
how that would work.
I know, but like you get my point. Like Thursday Night Football will be like the official broadcast of the Washington Commanders, you know, and like again, like maybe
they only play on Thursday night.
I mean, maybe we wouldn't mind that, but you get my point. Like they will be much more a part of this like scope of like the conversation, and they really kind of haven't been for I would say like most of our lives, like you and I.
Yes, I agree. And any owner, to be clear, even if it's not Bezos, it's just an automatic upgrade. It's just it doesn't even matter if they're bad. If that owner, whoever is like, because there's just like because then if you're talking about the spider graph thing and like if one of the attributes is incompetency, Dan Snyder is like 99 percentile. It's just like an all time. Any owner, even if they're bad, is going to be like let's say 74%. Like, there's still a significant upgrade in literally almost anyone who buys the team. That doesn't mean they're going to be like Super Bowl favorites all of a sudden and going to be the next dynasty. But I'm just saying, like, they're automatically the ceiling is automatically just so much higher than it would be if Snyder gets to keep the team. We all know that. I have one last thing. If you're ready to move on from ownership,
yeah, let's end this thing.
Last year, I called my shot and I was correct in predicting that Jimmy Garoppolo would be the Commanders quarterback, and he was not because he got hurt and there was a weird thing. But there was that article that said the Commanders very much wanted him, and that was.
But you weren't correct. That didn't happen.
I was 100% correct, but obviously that's a joke. But the point was they did want Jimmy. At least that came out in the report, and then the injury and his non-surgery and all.
So is this a story about how you were wrong, but you think you were right?
Well, I'm gonna get it right again, which means I guess I'm gonna get it wrong. But I think I've decided the perfect quarterback that the Commanders are going to have in 2023. Can you guess who I'm thinking of?
Is it like a pending free agent?
No.
So it's a player who's technically under contract through 2023.
They're gonna have to trade for this person.
They would have to trade for this Justin Fields.
Yep. It's gonna be Justin Fields. I know it's gonna be Justin Fields. They're the perfect team because I could be reading it wrong. I'm not convinced that the Bears are keeping him, and I don't think they should keep him for a number of reasons. Even if you think he's could be great, I just think there's a work in progress there, and I think you want to reset that clock on the quarterback because they're gonna have to pay him. That means it's 2 years of his rookie year deal already gone. They're out the window. And obviously they're the 5th-year option. But I think if you're looking for a landing spot for Justin Fields, it just seems very on brand that the Commanders would take the chance on him.
Beyond the reasons you're saying, and to be clear, I'm not jumping in this with you. It'd be funny, but it would be even more so on brand because of the what if episode that we did last year, where it was like, what if they lost the Doug Peterson, Carson Wentz, Jalen Hurts? Oh no, not even Carson Wentz. The Doug Peterson, Jalen Hurts, Nate Sudfeld. Game. They would have had him like outright. You know, they would have had that opportunity to draft him with what would have been the 10th overall pick. No, hang on. So Dallas was originally at 10.
Well, the Giants had it.
I'm sorry.
Giants had their pick.
The Giants. Right? So let me think here. The 2021 draft.
I forget. I don't know.
No, hear me out. We can do this. The Cowboys were at 10. The Giants were at 11. And the Eagles were at 12 because they had traded back, right, with the Dolphins. The Eagles were originally at 6 and moved back. to 12.
Yes.
Right.
And then moved up to 10.
And then Philly jumped up from 12 to 10 with Dallas. And so it went Devontae Smith at 10. And then because Devontae was gone, the Giants traded out of 11 with the Bears.
Yep.
But what we're saying is that would have been the Commanders at 11, not the Giants, because the Giants would have won the division.
Right.
Wow.
I mean, I don't know if that's the math worked out there.
But that was our logic.
But yes, close enough. Yes.
Well, okay.
Bam.
Anything else? Anything else you want to say? Want to offer?
No, definitely not.
Survivor's back. Mandalorian's back. Shout out to Gizmo. And BLG. To close this out, I would like you to give us your top 3 favorite ice cream flavors. Go.
Oh, mint chocolate chip has to be green.
These don't have to be in order, by the way. So, like, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not ranking it in terms of 1, 2, 3. I'm just saying 3. Mint chocolate chip, peanut butter chocolate. Like cups, like Reese's cups or whatever. And then, probably just chocolate chip.